And welcome back to the show. This is another episode of the Be Successful series here on Get Your Entrepreneurship Together. Today, I'm excited because I view this lady that we're about to speak to as a colleague in the coaching and consulting space. She's heavy into the business world, into the C-suite world, and is very passionate about helping people up level themselves both personally and professionally. So I'm very excited to have Megan Dimmer here with us today. Megan, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just looking into you and your career and everything that I was able to dig up on LinkedIn, it looks like you jumped into the coaching space at the same time I did in 2020. And I'm just curious, what made you make that leap? Entrepreneurship is not for the lighthearted. And I don't care who you are, if you've never done anything like that before, it can be scary. So, what made you want to make that leap?
Well, I have been working corporate, right, in the business world for my entire career, working for a Fortune 500 and really had taken marching orders from other people, right, my entire career. And so with the opportunity, I left a CEO role and I did some internal sort of soul searching, if you will. And I really said to myself, what is it that I love? What is it that keeps my glass full? And the reality is, when I looked back at my career, the things that really resonated as being sort of making me happy were when I was spending time coaching people on my team as a leader. And so I thought, if that's what really shines in terms of what gets me up in the morning, then I probably need to pursue it. And so that's what I did. I said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to bet on myself. Having been in sales for a number of years, you have to bet on yourself, right? So I did that and it worked. It worked out.
Very good. Very good. So yeah, just jumping right into the whole sales thing. Obviously, sales is the lifeblood of any business. Without sales, there's no revenue, no revenue, no business. And you having been in that world and worked with salespeople directly, I was curious about your thoughts on this. So, are salespeople born or are they made? And what one thing do they need to really level up?
Are they born or are they made? I believe that fundamentally, inherently, you have to have the courage to ask, right? So if you have the courage to ask for whatever it is that you want, if you have the ability to listen and you're a problem solver, then you may not call yourself a salesperson, but you can be a salesperson. And so I am a firm believer that, um, you know, if you haven't been in a sales role, right? So if you didn't grow up like I did, my first gig was at a mall, right? I worked at the Limited and I learned very quickly how to sell. But there are several people who kind of pivot into sales later in their career. And so the level up question, I think, is a good one, Brian, in terms of like, how do you level up into a sales role or from a sales role into a sales leadership role? And the reality is, it's not rocket science. It really is understanding your ideal customer profile, right? So who is the audience? And when you understand who the audience is, and you understand what you're selling, which is another key component, right? There's a lot of people who can talk high level about what they're selling, but if you really understand the problem that what you're selling, the product or service you're selling is solving, then you have to listen, right? So you have to do your due diligence, you have to understand your customer, and then you have to listen and you have to figure out, is what I did research about true? Do they need what I'm selling? And then stepping it up and making sure that you listen and you meet their needs, and then it's really it.
That's 100%. It's so interesting what you just touched on right there, because those two things, like knowing who your customer is and also knowing what you're selling, both of those points were raised by another one of my guests this weekend. And so here it is again. So if this is the second time you're hearing this on this series, start paying attention. You got to know your customer and you have to know what you're selling. And I've also heard, I think it was Ed Milet was talking about another way to really elevate your sales is to actually believe in the product that you're selling. What do you think about that?
Oh, you have to believe in it. So authenticity from my perspective is huge, right? So if you're going to go to anyone and sell anything, if you don't believe in it, why are they going to believe in it? And human beings can tell, right, if you're being authentic. So when you're talking to someone and you understand what it is you're selling, like we talked about, and you actually believe in what you're selling, and that comes through, that authenticity really can then start to build a relationship and ends up hopefully, right, turning into a sale. If not now, then later when the time is right.
Yep, absolutely. I agree 100%. You have to be authentic. And this is something that I tell people all the time is be unapologetically yourself when it comes to either sales, being an entrepreneur in business, or even just being a person that somebody wants to connect with. You know, nobody is inspired by mediocrity, you know?
For sure.
So be yourself. Absolutely. And then in your experience, you know, helping these high level people, these higher achievers, again, attain that next level of whatever it is that they're going for. I was wondering if you found if there is maybe one or two things that are just right in your face. They're right in your face, but those people can't see it, that those are the things that are needed to level up. I was wondering if you had any experience like seeing that over and over, that if they just can't see it because they're so in it. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Typically, people who I work with know that they want to level up, right? So they're coming to me saying, I want to take it to the next level. I'm at the top of my game, right? So typically, I'm talking to someone who has just crushed it or is about to crush it for their annual quota, right? And they've consistently done so, but they're feeling stuck in either a job or in, a company or whatever the case may be. And so when you say that, something that jumps out at me that sort of is a roadblock for leveling up, it takes some time from my experience to get to know them and their situation. And then as we start to talk about values, as we start to talk about personal mission statement, as we start to talk about things that are key components to figuring out the why are they stuck or the how are they going to get into that next role, that's when it starts to come to sort of the forefront, right? So for me, it's, okay, you're telling me that your values are these things, but the organization you work for does not share those values. Either that's publicly known, or if we look at their values, it's not there. Or you've told me about the person that you work for. It sounds like we have some conflict there, right? And there's a number of other sort of elements that I have experienced with people that I'm working with clients. And so then it's, if these are your values and these are the things that are really important to you as a human being and that you're looking for in other people that are organizations that you're connecting with, and those things are missing, you're not going to be able to crush it, right? You're compromising your values or you're overlooking things that are important to you, oftentimes for either the money, right? So the current money is good enough. So I'm willing to overlook my values because the current situation is good enough. Well, is it? Usually not if they're coming to work with me. And so I think that's sort of the long version of getting to your point. Usually those people who are rock stars, who I'm working with, have got it all figured out in the beginning of the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we dig deeper is when it really comes to light as to what that sort of theme is. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So I'll try to sum that up and you can let me know if I'm on track here. So basically what you're saying is when it comes to the thing they can't see when they want to level up and what it takes to get past that point, it's basically it's dependent on the person, but it's in the category of a disconnect and a barrier. So that disconnect is actually the barrier that's keeping them from the thing, but they have either dismissed it in their mind because of money or positioning or ego or whatever it is. But it's that disconnect that is causing them to stay stagnant.
Yes. And what I find is that most people do not take the time to write down what those values are. They have not gone through that exercise. And so it's almost not that, it's almost just because they haven't reflected, right? They haven't internalized. And so going through that actual, like, let's write it down and let's talk about it and let's put it in the universe, then it's very clear, right? And so that is the objective. So yes, thank you for summarizing, and absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. And you mentioned something that I don't recall if I've really heard before. Obviously, I've heard of a business mission statement, but I don't know that I've heard of a personal mission statement. Now, is getting into their values and writing those down, is that part of that personal mission statement process that you might have?
Yes, yes, it is. So of course, right. We've all, if we've worked as a consultant with businesses, we work through mission, vision, values, and going through that process. And it is very similar. It is, let's look at ourselves. Let's figure out what is our mission, right? So, and what is going to be the vision that's going to get us there. And then ultimately, what are those values that we live and breathe by? And that process is one that I do with all of my clients. And I did it with myself, Brian. And really, that's the reason why I find it to be so valuable. I am very much an applied knowledge person.
Yeah.
And so really, I know, right, that if I don't do things that are aligned with those values or with that mission statement, I'm compromising the things that are important to me. And I'm consciously making decisions that probably will not result positively.
Yes. Because again, there's that disconnect.
Yes.
So this is going so great. I can't tell you how happy this makes me. It's flowing right along with where I wanted to go, and we didn't even know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But with you, working with people and checking in with your own values and basically doing your own exercises, I'm really curious, like, why is working with these people and helping them attain what they want to have, why is that so important to you? And what happens when they get there or when you reach the goal that you have? What happens then?
So why is it so important to me? Because people, I love human beings, first and foremost. I love people and I love being around people. I'm an extrovert, right? And as I talked about before, right? My career, the success in my career had everything to do with the people on my teams. It had everything to do with when I helped them, when I guided them, when I gave them the tools and the resources that they needed to do their job well, and they crushed it, so did I. And I didn't really realize that in the moment. I knew that I liked doing it, but I didn't realize that that was the connecting point for me, right? And the reason that I wanted to keep being in leadership roles and having an impact. And it is a deep love, for salespeople, because it's my tribe, and sales leaders, because it's where I came from. It's where I grew up. It's what I navigated, right, as a career. And so I typically end up coaching salespeople and sales leaders, right? My tribe. And it makes me feel amazing when we are meeting and they're my client and we're going through all of these exercises, right? The mission statement creation, and I'm coaching them and talking to them about what's working and what's not working. And then when they make that move, if it's a career move, if it's a role change, when they hit that I am successful, this was my goal and I've achieved it, it is the biggest, typically now after post-COVID, virtual high five and reflection point of them describing, thank you for, these things that you kind of coached me through and these ideas, and I used this and this is what the outcome was. That is why I do it. That's it. And I don't want to say it's as simple as that, but it really is as simple as that.
Well, it's as simple as that. And it's also, it sounds like an energetic connection as well. Because when you said it, when these people reach their goals and achieve what they're wanting, so do you. So there's obviously a system, an energetic reciprocity that's happening. Like you're fueling them, their success fuels you, and the cycle just keeps going. Yeah.
Well said. Yes.
I do try. Sometimes I hit it. Sometimes, it's like, oh, strike and a miss. Anyways, what is one of the most memorable transformations that you've experienced?
Oh, there's so many. Um,
Just top of mind, just take the first one off the deck, this person, this situation, and this was incredible that it happened.
um, I have a tendency to have people from the past reach out and want me to help them in the next step, right? So having been a leader in multiple organizations, so I had an individual reach out who the struggle was real in the organization. Again, high performer, leadership roles, but was trying to figure out what is that next thing that I can do, either internally or externally from the business, to essentially have it be my last hurrah. I want to do this thing as my last job before I retire. And it's easy when you know the players, right? So it's easy when you know an organization and the players. You spend a little more time when you don't. You can get there, right? You can figure it out based on lots of different things. But in this scenario, it was very much a wow. When we look at this situation, when we look at the values, when we look at the things that are important to you, when we look at your mission, it is so obvious that you shouldn't be there. And what are we going to do to find something else? And so that individual pivoted into a completely different role, right? Went from sales into a less sales role, but more problem solving. And, at the core of anything, salespeople will always tell you, I love to solve problems. If they don't say it out loud, it's why they do it. And so more of a consulting role. And loving the business. There was a brand. So I call it a crush list when my clients put together a list of companies that they want to work for. It wasn't even really on the radar, but it was a big name. And she ended up pivoting and she called me and said, early on, I was not really sure. I was not really sure about the process of the mission statement creation. I was not really sure about any of it. But in the end, look at where I landed. And that person, I've checked in, super happy, loving what they're doing, and started engaging again recently. So I think that is, seeing that kind of a transformation, that kind of a pivot is huge, especially when we don't have to stay in sales because you're selling pretty much in any role, right? So to see that person make that shift was pretty incredible. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And it allows room for anybody else that might be in that similar situation to see themselves in that story and just realize that, just because you're here now doesn't mean you have to stay here.
Yeah.
There's more life and more success to be had when you take away that disconnect and you align with your values and who you are and what you're trying to do.
Brian, there's something important here too, that I just wanted to lean into.
Please.
So I have mentioned, and it's kind of all over my brand, right, that I work with top performers, high performers. A lot of what I find, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, is the top performers don't necessarily get the attention in terms of coaching and leadership development. Oftentimes they get overlooked because organizations spend time with the people who are not the top performers. So you might get kudos, you might get the big bonus check, but oftentimes it's like you'll talk to people and they'll say, I love it, right? I'm left on my own to do what I need to do. People leave me alone. The leadership leaves me alone so I can do my thing. And that's not always the best thing. That's not a retention strategy.
No.
And so, right? And so oftentimes what I see is these people are reaching out because they need to be heard. They need to be seen. They need someone with them that feels what they're feeling and that can help guide them because they're missing that. And so I say that because, you know, we always think about the person who is not at the top of their game needing a coach. But the people who are at the top of the game need a coach as much or more. So that's the sort of caveat that I wanted to put in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you did, because honestly, when you said that and made that point, I got goosebumps because I know that that's real. That is absolutely happening in organizations all over the country, whether they're big or small. And it's so true. If you have somebody that's in that killer sales role, they're in the leadership position, well, who is looking up to them? Who's watching what they're doing? Well, it's those lower performing people. So why would you want those lower performing people to keep catching up to the guy who's at the top or the girl that's at the top? No, you want, just like in coaching, you want to keep leveling and going and learning. That way the whole organization can thrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned in your intake that you're excited for things coming up, which makes me think you've got something rolling out, like maybe a book launch or, a course that's coming up, or, what's going on? What's coming up for you? I can't wait to hear it.
Well, it's more of, I have more space to do more coaching. I was so in 2020, I did only coaching for essentially a year, right? So I was in an executive coaching role where I was coaching CEOs and business owners. And at that time, I was, not doing any fractional work, although fractional work was on the docket of what I wanted to do in my business. After that year, I pivoted and was doing a lot of fractional work, right? So I was a fractional CEO for more than one company. I was a fractional chief revenue officer. And I just a month ago decided my glass is full when I'm coaching. That's the thing I should be doing. Growing businesses. I'm going to grow my own business and stop growing everybody else's business, but growing it naturally with the right people, the right clients, the people who want to grow. And so that's really what's happening. That's the latest and greatest. Is I'm really excited that this is what I'm focused on.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Again, going back to that whole alignment thing, that is amazing. Well, congratulations, seriously, for taking that leap and just getting out there and doing it. So you heard it, folks. She's got more space. She's got more space in the lineup, so hit her up. That's what I'm saying.
Top performers, here we are.
Absolutely. And now that you've created more of this space and you're wanting to connect with those right people for your services, just from a business entrepreneurship standpoint, how are you doing that? What are you leveraging in order to make that happen?
Podcasts.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
You just kidding. So I really am primarily just making it known on social media. And when I talk, I'm connecting with a lot of people. I'm connecting with people I know from the past. I'm connecting with people whom I've met through LinkedIn. And really just, I just moved to Arizona. So I've been connecting with people in the Valley, just trying to get to know people and getting the known out there that this is what I'm doing.
That's awesome. I don't know if you know this, but I'm in Arizona as well.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix.
I'm in Phoenix too.
That's fun.
That's
We should
awesome.
probably hang out sometime and just get a coffee or something. That would be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. So here we are. We're down the street from each other.
Yep. Who knows? It could literally be down the street. Exactly.
That's
That's so
awesome.
cool. That is so cool. Well, now I've lost all complete train of thought thinking about, getting together later and hanging out and continuing our conversation. Um,
Yes, that's great.
so, um, just going back to the whole subject about disconnection and all of this, there's another there's another subject that's really out there right now that a lot of people are talking about, and it's this concept of work-life balance. So I was curious what your thoughts are on that subject and whether you think there even is such a thing.
I have strong thoughts on that topic,
I
Brian.
love it. I love it. Let's go. I'm excited.
And if there isn't that sort of thing, what are we doing? Really, if there's not a balance and you can't live life and enjoy and be happy and do your thing, what are we doing? Right? Human beings were not made to just work. Now, if you love working, which a lot of my clients and a lot of people I know love working, that's incredible. But if you don't take time for personal care, take time for whatever it is that fills your glass outside of work, you're going to burn out. Burnout's a real thing. And typically people find things, ways for an outlet if they don't actually carve out the time to have the balance. So I have a strong opinion of it. And I'll tell you that as a leader in organizations, when I see people who don't, oftentimes salespeople or sales leaders don't take time, don't take off their paid time off, don't take vacations, I actually almost force it because it's so important. Even if you're you're homebody, you just want to stay home and read a book, we all need it. That's my opinion. What's your opinion?
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree. We all need to take that time away, especially if it is a higher stress type of job. Absolutely. I come from it from a kind of a different perspective, because I'm not working, when I do any kind of coaching, I'm not really coaching somebody that has a job, so to speak. I mean, they do have a job, but they're an entrepreneur,
Oh,
right?
right.
So I come at it from a standpoint of there is no work-life balance. There is just your life. And what does that look like? What do you want it to be? And what do you need it to be? You know, there there's this another thing that's out there, this whole hustle and grind culture. Getting up at 4 in the morning and hitting the gym and then doing the cold plunge and then meditating and then working on your business from 5 in the morning to 6 before you get ready to go to the day job. And that is great for some people, but it's not great for everybody.
Right.
And I touched on this actually in the last podcast that I was on. And it's basically you have to do what's right for you. I am not, I don't know about you, but I am not that morning person.
Right.
I need to take my time in the morning. I move like a snail because my mornings need to be chill, relaxed. I need to time that for my body to wake up, get the coffee. It just, yeah. Now, the afternoons and this is something I want to get your opinion on too. The afternoons is where I really tend to shine. Starting about 1 o'clock to about 4 o'clock, my peak moments to execute and get things done.
Okay.
Before or after, it kind of starts to waver. So I'm wondering if you incorporate that like peak operating time into your coaching and consulting and recommend that people kind of really focus on the high level tasks within their peak time.
That is not necessarily part of my coaching strategy now. It's not in that typically high performing salespeople know what their peak time is, right? And typically high performers in a sales role have time that, very organized time. So where it's like, if they're a sales leader, they have their one-to-ones with their team at a certain time, they have their team meetings at a certain time, they're out in the field or they're on calls or whatever the case is. And salespeople typically, right, if they're doing a lot of cold calling and that sort of thing, it can sometimes be industry specific, but a lot of times it's what are those peak hours, right? And it kind of shifts during different times of the year where you're going to be able to reach out and get the attention of the people that you're trying to work with. And so it's different, I think, in when you're dealing with salespeople and that sort of sales culture mentality than a business owner, which I'm with you. When I was coaching only CEOs and business owners, it's very much how are you going to find the time that works best to be most efficient to get the things done, and that was far more important when I was coaching that kind of level.
All right. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Again, it's just who, who are you? What is your role? And what are you trying to do? All of those things have to factor in. And you mentioned something about, sales, and I want to kind of go back there because again, people that are watching this channel, they're entrepreneurs. They're more towards the beginning of their journey. And in order to get sales, get the word out, sometimes you have to go cold outreach, which I know just sends shivers down my spine even right now. Cold, oh, I don't want to do that. Ugh.
Right.
So I was wondering if you had any kind of techniques or like unique one-liners, anything like that that would help open up. Like when you get that person finally on the phone and it's a cold call, what do you say so they don't hang up on you?
It depends on your target audience, right? So it depends on who you're talking to, the role that you're reaching out to, right? It's all very specific from my experience. If I'm reaching out to someone who is another business owner, it's business to business, then the conversation very much to get someone locked in is to let them know that you're also a business owner, right? If you have a connection point, if you've done your research and you know that the person is in the same city as you, or they have the same role as you, or they went to the same school as you, those are the things human to human that usually get someone to not hang up.
I see. That is great stuff.
But
Just
you have to do your research.
That 100%.
And I'll tell you, if you don't do your research, it's going to be the shivers of cold. It's going to be painful shivers because you're going to continue to get that door slammed in your face. So it's that human connection. If you can figure it out, and then you're authentic, like we talked about. Like you can't sound like you're calling to sell something, right? It really needs to be, let's figure out how we can build the connection. And then when you build the connection, they may want to buy from you if they like you.
Right, exactly. And it all comes back to that word research. Can't stress that enough, folks. You've got to know who you're reaching out to, a little bit about them, spend a minute at least on their LinkedIn profile, see what they've been posting about. It's like, or what they've been commenting on. This is something that I do when I talk to people about like organic social strategies. If you engage with a person at all that might be a prospect, they like your post and you go check them out. When you reach out to them, make sure you say, hey, I saw you like my post. I saw what you said here. I really agree with you. I'd love to connect. And that's it. Just connect. Don't say, I'd love to talk to you about what I do. Like, nobody wants to hear that.
No, they do not. That is the truth.
Absolutely the truth. My goodness. So this has been so much fun so far. And I was wondering if there's anything in your mind that's coming up right now in the conversation, whether it be sales, whether it be up-leveling a person on a personal side. Is there anything that's out there right now that you just look at and be like, this is complete BS and I need to put a stop to it?
Wow. So if we're talking to entrepreneurs, and this is the entrepreneur channel, the thing that I find to be BS that we need to put a stop to is typically an entrepreneur is a visionary. Yes?
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, as they're starting to grow their business, they make decisions about who they're going to bring into the business based on need. So I have a need for a financial person. I have a need for a sales person. I have a need for whomever. And typically they're going to try to find the best person they can that can do the job to help them grow their business. Yes.
Right. Of course.
What has become very obvious to me over several years, I mean, the last 3, most importantly, right? To say like obvious BS. If you bring those people in to do a job, let them do the job. So if you bring in a sales leader, or you bring in a CFO, or you bring in someone, even if they're fractional, of course you need to have KPIs. So you need some key performance indicators so that you know that you're on the same page with that person. But if you micromanage and you try to do the job, there's no point in having that person. And so I don't know if that's what you were looking for in terms of BS and sort of the question you asked, but I will tell you, as we've been talking and I'm thinking, I want to make sure that, I do have a lot of experience with entrepreneurs, and it comes up so much. I'm sure you see the same thing, Brian.
Yep. That's one of the things that leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners, that's one thing that really they would be so well served to let this sink in. The fact that you are essentially micromanaging another person, it's not helping your progress. It is impeding your progress. If you vetted this person, that they know what they're doing, they know how to run your CRM system and build your sales pipeline, let's say, because they've demonstrated their track record, then teach them how to use your system, but let them go. Let them run it. That way you can work on your business instead of in it.
And by the way, don't have a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I mean, we know that most startups fail. Yes, we know this. And why do most startups fail? They're not efficient. They spend too much time doing things that they shouldn't be doing and don't actually get to the point, right? They're not selling.
Yes.
And so I think there's lots of theories on the why, but I will tell you, if you're in meetings with everybody that you can think of, if it's you, yourself, and you, then it's a different conversation, right? But if we have other people in our organization and we're sitting around talking about things and not doing things, we're not going to be doing anything.
That is so true. And that is actually something that's in the narrative and has been for a little bit. This whole idea of getting rid of unnecessary meetings. And I think it might have been Gary Vee that originally started talking about that. And then Alex Hormozy kind of picked up and started saying the same things. Yeah, there's so many meetings that could just be emails.
Yes. Or it could just be, let's have a dashboard.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Like, what does that serve? Like Slack. Yeah. Internal messaging, group projects.
Yes.
All of these things are tools that you can use to make your time more productive and, stop everybody from suffering, sitting in a chair, looking at a fake oak table for an hour.
That's right. Are we in the business of meetings or in the business of doing business? Right. So anyway, they're almost pet peeves, but also I would say BS.
Yes, absolutely. And that was actually the core of my question, is something that's in the narrative out there around, either sales or the business world, or, leveling up leaders, just a narrative that's out there. It's like, that is completely wrong. And I need to speak out against that.
Yes. I will tell you that I still coach a lot of business owners, and we have these conversations, right? So the conversations still are, let your people that you hired do what they need to do. And if you can't, for some reason, let's figure out why. And we love the idea of not having the meetings, but we're still having the meetings. Why? So let's put a format together that allows for us to communicate and collaborate across groups, but not continue to have to get in a room and have the same conversation over and over without any next steps and without really detailing, like, did we accomplish the thing we said we were going to? And so I feel passionately about it. And if I can help anybody in any way get over that hurdle, I am here to help.
Yeah. Is there anything that you do, or like any, just sometimes it's as simple as a one sentence you can say to somebody that makes it click, like, oh, this is just unnecessary. Is there anything like that that you can just help say to somebody that gets the light bulb to turn on? Like, oh, we don't need to have 5 meetings every single week.
Well, it really goes back to help me understand what you're talking about in those meetings. Is there an agenda, right? So oftentimes they don't follow the agenda, and there's no accountability in terms of who's going to do what, right, as a follow-on to the meeting. And so they're not at the end of the meeting going back and saying, these are the things we agreed to, these are the people that are going to do the things. We're looking next week for you to come back and report back on it, right? If you're going to have the meeting, you need to have that. When there is a, oh, well, right, as a sort of response to doing those things, that's when it's like, so how do you expect that you're going to accomplish that if nobody's accountable for it? Everybody cannot be accountable for it, right? And
Right.
so that for me has been telling. And then they look in the mirror and say, well, right, sort of look in the mirror, but they're looking oftentimes back at me saying, okay, I probably need to rethink that.
And I was just thinking of, as you were talking there, you working with people, you sitting across from these high level people, the experiences that you've had. I was wondering who inspires you. Like, who do you listen to and take in to help, feed your spirit, feed your inspiration?
Well, I have surrounded myself with a number of executive level people cross industry. So I network with people from lots of different industries, C-suite, as well as I have a coach that I work with on and off. I'm actually going to be starting another program in January. So I have a coach that I work with typically in a peer advisory format, which I really enjoy. And oftentimes that peer advisory group is other executives. And so I get inspiration really from people whom I know have crushed it. And I have lots of connection with those people. I certainly watch people, right? So I follow, and it changes over time, different people, figures on LinkedIn or on Insta or wherever the case may be. But I like real live people that I can tap into. So that's my inspiration, and that's where I get it.
And for you, that is beautiful, because that's who you are. You're a networker, you're a connector, you're an extrovert, and having that real human connection is very, very important. And it's important for all of us, just obviously in different degrees for different people. And it's really great that you've had the ability to connect with those types of people, and so many of them, and be able to, bounce things off, get inspiration, watch them win, have it inspire you too.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Well, I can't believe it's almost been an hour already. This is crazy. It's gone by this fast. So, where can somebody find out more about you? Where can they dive in to Megan and see what you're all about? And most importantly, how to work with you, since you have this more open space now?
Good question. So I'm on LinkedIn, right? Megan Dimmer. I also have a website. So my business is called Solve, S-O-L-V. So it's www.solve.work. And those are the two best places to find me. And yeah, I'm definitely open and excited to start working with more people. If there's any entrepreneur, I also, to your point about networking, I love to network. The people that I get my inspiration from, it doesn't just happen. So networking to me is truly investing time in getting to know others. And we all get hit up by people who don't actually want to invest time to get to know us, but are really just trying to sell us something.
It's a
Not my
big
jam.
problem out there right now.
It is a big problem. And so I would say twofold. I would love to network and connect with anybody from your channel, and love to see how I can help. And if that ends up being in a coaching, client scenario, great. But the connection and the networking part is really exciting to me. So I'd say LinkedIn's probably the best way to do that. And if you want to learn more about me, go to my website.
Okay, perfect. And, folks, those links will be in the show notes below. So you can just simply click, go over there, find out more about Megan. And if you feel like she might be the right fit to help you get to that next level, book a call. That's all I got to say. Book that call.
Awesome. Yes, please.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great. Your experience, your knowledge is going to help so many people, not just on this channel, but as you grow your business. So thank you so much. Congratulations for everything that you've achieved. And is there anything that you'd like to leave us with today? Any final thoughts?
My final thought that I'd like to leave with is do something that makes you happy, right? Personally or professionally, figure out what that thing is, reflect on how it feels. So what is the thing that I'm doing and how does it feel? And what is it about it that makes me happy? And then make a practice of continuing to do it.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, again, thank you so much, Megan, for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. I look forward to connecting with you, and especially since you're out here in the Valley, that's crazy. So that'll be fun, and definitely follow you on LinkedIn, and just going to enjoy watching you grow.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. There you go, folks. Megan Dimmer, go check her out. Check out her coaching. If you are that high performing professional, links below. And thank you for joining. Peace. We'll see you in the next one.